by thanking our dear friend Jamal Nur-Sargat and all the friends of Turkad for gathering us so beautifully into the presence of Hazrati Shems, and all our dear speakers and all the hearts gathered here. Çok teşekkür ederim. Aşk olsun. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin in the name of God, the infinitely compassionate and infinitely merciful, and we ask His help. As it says in the beginning of the Maqalat, this talk was gathered from the words of the beloved Mevlana Shamsuddin Tebrizli, the Sultan of those who have attained. May God not deprive us of His abundant blessings. We're deeply grateful for the opportunity that we've had to spend time in the companionship with Shems during the journey of preparing the book Rumi's Son, The Teachings of Shems of Tabriz, selections from his Maqalat, and the generosity of Dr. Rafiq Algan, whose inspiration it was to begin a translation into English. One of the gifts of that journey has been to feel Shems's constant encouragement of those to whom he speaks, to become people of paradise, here, now. So in this moment, we wish to share with you some of that encouragement. We're living in the midst of very challenging times. Shems and Mevlana also lived in the midst of very challenging times. And yet what a possibility opened with the example of being that they unveiled. They invite us into the garden of seeing God's beauty and abundance in the midst of everything, seeing the unity and encouraging souls to be people of paradise here, now. In the Maqalat, the Conversations of Shems-i Tabriz, Shems tells us, people say that there's no path, or they say the path is very long. Yes, the way is long, but once one sets out to walk with great exuberance and joy, the distance of the way disappears. Just as it was said, paradise is surrounded by things we dislike. All around the garden of paradise are thorns, but when the fragrance of the beloved reaches our nose, bringing news of the beloved to the lover, then that place of thorns becomes very pleasant. The thorns that surround hell always seem to be roses and basil, but the unpleasant odor of fire comes to us from them. If I were to try to explain to you about the beauty of this path, it wouldn't be appropriate. In this world, the opposites play out the dance of light and dark, of difficulty and ease. And in the midst of it, we have the work of being rightful caretakers, Khalifas of the divine, here acting as servants, Abdallah, to establish the mizan, the balance and good measure in this world. Shems encourages us to open the heart to its true capacity. He says the heart is greater, more expansive, more pleasant, and more illumined than the heavens. Why would one narrow it with useless words? How could it be appropriate to constrict a very pleasant universe into a prison for oneself? What is the purpose of turning a universe like a fruitful garden into a tight prison, wasting time with delusions and ugly imaginings, and throwing oneself into a dark universe, sleeping in ignorance all the time, wrapped in a cocoon like a silkworm? We are of the people who turn the prison into a fruitful garden. If our prison turns into a fruitful garden, imagine what our fruitful garden might become. Just watch and see. None of the gracious words of the Prophet have surprised me. Only one hadith has bewildered me. The world is the prison of the believer. I don't see the world as a prison at all. Where is the prison, I'm asking? But that blessed one said, the prison of the believers. He didn't say the prison of the servants. The servants are a different community. One doesn't have to fit one's own meaning into that narrow thought. Whatever comes from the friend, quickly say, it's just like that, and keep going. Shams says, strive to do the good. They tell a story about Ali, may God be pleased with him. He had said, we were in the Baqi cemetery, offering the funeral salat. The Prophet came to us and said, there is no man or woman for whom God has not written whether he or she will go to paradise or hell. One of those who were there asked, I wondered, can we change this destiny? He said, endeavor, do good deeds. Each human being facilitates the work for which he or she is created. People created for paradise make easier the deeds of the people of paradise. Those created for hell make easier the work of the people of hell. And after this, the Prophet recited the verses from Surah Layl. And so, as for one who gives to others and is conscious of God and believes in the truth of the ultimate good, for him shall we make easy the path towards ultimate ease. To clarify, Shams says, let me tell you about the qualities of the people of paradise. Let me also tell you the sign of the people of hell. Since the day that God created this universe, like an arrow shot from a bow, every day, every moment, he has been opening and closing doors. This takes place at such a limitless speed that one's mind stops. Whomever you see who has a beautiful temperament and beautiful face, if his or her words are straightforward, if he or she is open-hearted and prays for good things for everyone, a joy of heart comes from the speech of such a person, and they make you forget the anxieties and tightness of this universe. Your inside opens in such a way that even if he or she swears at you, you laugh. Maybe when he speaks of unity, you weep. But in that moment, you feel 100,000 joys and laughter open within yourself. Such a being is a person of paradise. There are also those who bring you only anxiety and coldness. Those are those of hell. But whoever has realized such a secret behaves accordingly. In this endeavor, Shams encourages us to bring our helplessness, our incapacity, our need to our sustainer. For need is the foremost wing feather on the way. If you pass beyond the body and reach the soul, you'll have reached createdness. The truth is the ancient, eternal being. Where can the one who is created find the one who is eternal? What connects the earthly creature and the Lord of Lords? In your opinion, that by means of which you move and attain liberation is the soul. Then what use is it to put that soul in your hand and give it away? Even if your lovers bring you their own heads, the gift of their life, they'll have only brought cumin to Kirman, the source of all cumin. What is it worth to bring cumin to Kirman? What renown will it bring? What price will it fetch? There is a palace where he is without need. So take your need there, because the one without need loves need, and you, due to that need, may suddenly leap out of these created affairs. Something from the Eternal One is connected to you. It is love. The ambush of love comes and embraces you. Just as it says in the Quran, they love God is the effect of God loves them. Then you will see the ancient eternal one through the ancient eternal one, because he perceives all vision. This is the entirety of the words that do not end and will not end until the day of resurrection. And Shems encourages us to enter this fortress of oneness, of La ilaha illallah. He says to say the name is easy. You may say, I've entered the fortress, or I went to Damascus. But if it were just a matter of the tongue, in an instant you could ascend from earth to the heavens or to the empyrean and the throne. The Prophet Muhammad said, the faithful one who says, La ilaha illallah, with purity and from the heart, enters paradise. You sit and say he is one, but who are you? You're more than 6,000. Become one. Otherwise, is his oneness your concern? You're 100,000 particles, and each particle is carried off by some desire. With each particle, you're carrying an illusion. The one who demonstrates purity of intention and sincerity of action goes to paradise. And then there's no need for a promise, such as if he or she can do this, he or she enters paradise. For if he or she is able to do this, he or she is completely paradise itself. And moving ahead, often it is through difficulty that love is deepened. Shams reminds us of Layla and Majnun. Harun al-Rashid, the famous Abbasid emperor, said one day, "Bring Layla to me, that I might see her just once." Majnun has fallen into total difficulty because of his love for her. From east to west, lovers have made the story of their love their mirror. After spending lots of money and with many sly ruses, they managed to bring Layla. They placed her into a secluded room in the palace of the Caliph Harun al-Rashid. In the evening, the Caliph came to the secluded room. Candles had been lit. He looked at her carefully for some time. And then for some time, he sat with his head bowed. Finally, he said to himself, "Let me make her speak. Perhaps the beauty of her face becomes more apparent when she speaks." Harun turned his face to Layla and asked, "Are you Layla?" "Yes, I am Layla. But you are not Majnun. The eye that is in Majnun's head is not in yours. How can you see, Layla, with an eye with which you look at others, unless you wash it clear with your tears? Look at me with the eye of Majnun. One should look at the beloved with a loving eye, because he loves them. But the problem is they don't look at God with the eye of love. They look with the eye of knowledge, or from the viewpoint of gnosis or philosophy. But to look with the eye of love is another work altogether. The human being remembers the one whom he or she loves, especially if that beloved is God. But who is able to remember him as he deserves to be remembered? We are remembering you all the time. We are filled with your love. Shams says, "I wish people knew that happiness is in the gathering of friends, that they might mingle with each other and show their beautiful faces, so that love might appear among them. When one by one desires come between them, their brightness vanishes. But if you keep something within honey, it remains fresh and sweet. The air cannot find a way into it to spoil it. To some people, he says, my words may seem bitter, but if they endure that bitterness, a sweetness comes to them. One who smiles during the time of bitterness smiles because his eyes are seeing the sweetness that will come in the end. And so, according to this point of view, patience means to witness the end result of an action, and impatience means to be so short-sighted as to not be able to see the outcome. With a humorous story, he encourages us to patiently persevere. He tells us about someone who was a rope dancer who would walk on the rope with eyes blindfolded, clogs on his feet, a water jug on his head, and holding 4 things in his hands. And he'd walk forward on the rope, back and forth, and suddenly throw himself down, hold the rope with his feet under his armpits, and hang by a single finger, and then jump back on the rope again. Meanwhile, his heavier friend would keep falling. All the time he was on the rope, that friend would keep shouting at him, "I brought you here in the name of such and such a teacher." He'd begin to weep. Then quickly people would gather the sticks and blankets and offer loads of advice. They practiced tightrope walking at the seaside, so that if they fall off the rope, they fall into the water. In this way, after long practice, they become master tightrope walkers. And after that, they practice on land. Gradually, they raise their rope and learn about the best ways to stand and walk on it. Just as patience is needed for the crescent moon to become full, for the rain on the rocks to turn them into rubies, and for the drops that rain onto the sea to become pearls. These two would slowly become expert tightrope walkers through patience and practice. With time, from unripe grapes, you can make halva. Shams says to ask him from time to time, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am your servant, and day and night I am praying for you." He encourages that patience, that perseverance in this process of learning how to be true servants, and encourages us to keep good companionship, to open to the presence of the prophets, to zikr the prophets. He says everyone speaks about his own peer. In a dream, the blessed prophet gave a cloak to me, but this is not one of those cloaks that would become old after 40 days, or fall to pieces to be thrown into the furnace or used for dishcloths. Rather, it's a cloak of companionship and conversation. Not a companionship with any limits, but a companionship that has no yesterday, today, or tomorrow. For what does love have to do with yesterday, today, or tomorrow? And he tells us that even if the whole world would hang him by his beard, still if something needs to be said, he will say it. And without a doubt, even after 1,000 years, or even 800, these words will be heard by those whom I want to hear. A few people became the prophet's scribes for the revelation, those who wrote down the divine commands, and a few became the place where the revelation descends, that is the place of its effect. Work hard so that you may be both. In other words, be both the object of the revelation and the scribe of the revelation that comes to the heart. Şems says, "Stop, O my camel. Joy has turned to its last degree. The work is finished, the way has come to an end. The earth has turned into a beautiful paradise. The time of celebration has come again, and things have been set right." He says that Mevlana would say to him, "If you are silent, your speech becomes brighter, because both the light of silence and the value of speech are hidden within silence." So for a few moments, I'd like to just invite us into the silence with Shams, into the heart, and to seal this offering with a passage from the Quran. In the name of God, the infinitely compassionate and infinitely merciful, consider time. Truly, human beings are in loss. Accept those who have faith and do the deeds of wholeness and reconciliation, and encourage each other in holding to truth, and encourage each other in patient perseverance. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqqi. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Sadaqallah.